Hello, and welcome to another episode of What's on Draft. I'm your host, Tom, and in this special two-part episode, we're going to be exploring brews that contain hemp-sourced CBD, an antioxidant, flavor compounds called terpenes, which can be sourced from marijuana, and we'll even brew a beer that actually contains THC, the active ingredient in the devil's lettuce. If you're an avid fan of the What's on Draft show, you're probably familiar with our fictional brewery, Sleepaway Brew Co.
You want to open up a microbrewery? Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah.
Sleepaway has tackled everything from hostile tap takeovers and beer journalism to unlicensed expansions and burrito beers. But the idea of marijuana-infused beer has been a constant theme in the Sleepaway universe since Season 1 came out in 2015.
Or our cross-faded IPA, dry hopped with nugs of real chronic, because we love to blaze.
Can I try the crossfaded?
It's dry hopped with actual weed nugs, super expensive to make. You will definitely get high.
We're gonna get in trouble. I keep telling you guys, we gotta get rid of that one.
I feel like if we've been doing it this long and nothing bad has happened, then nothing bad is ever going to happen.
The TTB's pulling your license.
Why? Also, what is the TTB?
Well, this is just a shot in the dark, but it may have something to do with the fact that our flagship IPA has marijuana nuggets in it.
Bro, weed's legal.
Yeah, in California, TTB's a federal agency.
Now, as with everything in the Sleepaway universe, there is a kernel of truth to this. While the commercial production of any alcoholic beverage that contains THC is unlawful in the US on a federal level, there are companies that are investing significant capital in non-alcoholic THC beers, like Saria Beverages in Colorado and San Diego's own Two Roots Brewing, both of whom are developing alcohol-free beers that contain THC, the active ingredient in cannabis. Constellation Brands, which is the owner of Ballast Point and Corona, has also invested $4 billion in something called Canopy Growth, which is a Canadian cannabis farming operation. Now, does this mean that Sleepaway's cross-faded IPA will be replaced with a THC-infused version of Sculpin? Probably not anytime soon. But many brewers have been chomping at the bit to experiment with marijuana terpenes, or flavor compounds. Now, terpenes can be found in most foods and natural ingredients like lemons, coffee, and hops, but they can also be derived from marijuana or hemp. Just to refresh you, marijuana is the plant with THC that gets you high. Hemp is the plant with no THC that doesn't get you high. Other than that, they're basically the same plant. San Diego's beloved Pariah Brewing Company attempted to obtain TTB approval for adding terpenes derived from marijuana into a beer called Smilex, but the agency kept rejecting it. Even though the terpenes were approved by the American Food and Drug Administration, the Tax and Trade Bureau wouldn't let it happen, and Brian was forced to censor his can art. Other breweries in Florida were even sent official cease and desist letters by the TTB for using terpenes. One of the only craft breweries that seems to have found a way to produce a terpenes beer to the TTB's liking is New Belgium, who created a beer called the Hemperor HPA. Hemperor is made with hemp seed hearts, which apparently is the only part of the hemp plant that Daddy Government will let American breweries play with. For now. To learn more about the struggle to commercially brew with hemp, I headed to Aurora, Colorado to interview Mason Hembree about a beer he brewed with hemp-derived CBD called George Washington's Secret Stash IPA. CBD, or cannabidiol, is a non-narcotic antioxidant that can be sourced from marijuana or hemp. For a brief period in 2016, Mason legally brewed and sold an IPA which contained hemp-derived CBD. But he soon ran into pushback from the feds.
We're in a court battle. George Washington's is an English IPA with West Coast hops to bring out that resinous content. We heavily dry hop it. That's kind of what we wanted to, is like a sticky, malt-forward IPA. It actually is a progression of one of our previous beers, Dank IPA, that we've been producing since 2010. You know, the next step forward was, let's take Dank, move it into the realm of CBD. We were approved for the formula. They gave us approval for it back in July of 2016. Yeah, 2 years in a row, we were, without a doubt, hands down, the longest line at GABF. It's crazy. We get calls from around the world. I've had calls from Germany and South Africa. Barcelona is huge on it, obviously. Distributors across the nation immediately wanted it. We weren't sure if people would be fearful, like, oh, hey, there's cannabis and beer, I don't know. They wanted it, they get it. Everybody already understands what CBD is. They get why we would put that in a beer, and they waited in line for it. So I can't wait until they can just go to the liquor store and grab it.
A brewer's desire to see his or her beer on store shelves is a common one, but the nature of Mason's CBD beer requires him to jump through more hoops than usual to get there.
We keep the paperwork on the premise because it's required by the TTB. Our testing information, the compliance paperwork, obviously ours is a little bit different than the typical hemp-infused beer because in the past it's been hemp seeds, and ours is actually a cannabinoid-rich hemp extract. So it's specifically rich in cannabidiol, CBD. Summary version of opinion letter, determining that the CBD is industrial hemp extract. Asoli Labs is a laboratory that the U.S. government uses for all drug testing. This is another laboratory we had to send it to. It's definitely not an inexpensive beer to produce. So we actually stopped making it on December 14th, 2016 because of a situation that arose as a result of the Drug Enforcement Administration. So the DEA actually determined that all cannabinoids are marijuana extracts, which oversteps the boundaries of what they are as an enforcement administration. They kind of jumped into the realm of legislation, writing their own legislation. The TTB requests that we surrender our formula or face revocation proceedings within 10 days. So we hired Hoban Law, who's kind of the quarterback of the cannabis industry nationwide. They said, hell no. Okay. We refused to surrender, and since then we've been involved in this HIA case, and just going back and forth with TTB, telling them, you're wrong, DEA's wrong, we're not going to give up our formula, you have to go through revocation proceedings, and you're going to lose. Yeah. And they are, so.
When I asked Mason where he saw the future legal status of combining marijuana and alcohol akin to Sleepaway's Crossfaded, he was optimistic and had this to say.
I'm a bit of an anarcho-capitalist, and I think that laws determining, what can be produced are stupid in the first place. I wouldn't personally put marijuana in my beer, but if somebody wants to produce it and that's how they want to consume marijuana and beer together, that's their decision, and I'm all for it. I don't think there should be a law against it. I hope that there's not a law against it in the future. George Washington obviously was well known for growing hemp at Mount Vernon, so it's named in his honor. He's a rebel leader, he grew hemp, it just all makes sense. So we're trying to move away from the whole Cheech and Chong concept. That was fun back in the past to laugh about, but the industry's growing up, and we'd love to help add a certain level of sophistication to it. And nothing's more sophisticated than our first president, right?
After an 18-month hiatus, Mason resumed production of his CBD beer in July 2018. And that's not the only progress regarding the legal status of hemp and CBD, since we first began researching this segment over a year ago.
The United States Senate voted to legalize domestic hemp production, and the Food and Drug Administration approved CBD as a medication for epilepsy. The laws and rules regarding all of this are definitely shifting. In the meantime, you can visit Mason at Dad and Dude's Breweria in Aurora, Colorado, where they have great food and great beer. Although Mason did recently announce plans to sell his brewery to a cannabis company based right here in San Diego, so hopefully soon we'll see more of his beer out west. Join us on the next episode of What's on Draft when Aaron and Chris from Home Brewing Company brew a saison with a shitload of weed in it. Because as it turns out, cannabis is completely legal in California, and homebrewing is legal in all 50 states. So here in the Golden State, we can put as much weed in our homebrew as we damn well please. God, it's good to live in paradise. Enjoy shoveling your driveway, the rest of America. We'll see you next time on What's on Draft.